Hey, the holidays are upon us. And if you're thinking about hostessing, if you're thinking about all the things you have to take care of, the details, the stuff, I would suggest that you check out Wayfair because they have what you need. They really do. And they are great items for every style. If you're having a more fancy holiday, if you're more casual, I am hosting Thanksgiving. I definitely need some new tablecloths and linen napkins. And I think I'm going to replace a few throw pillows. So go to Wayfair, look at the items they have. The shipping is free, even if you order a big, huge piece of furniture. Easy delivery, easy returns. They've got Christmas trees, wreaths. They've got inflatables. They've got lamps. They've got blankets. They've got stuff for your bathroom. Do you need to freshen things up? Do you need a new bath mat? Do you need a new shower curtain? Wayfair is the place to go to help you find everything you need to pull your holidays together. Get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. What I hear a lot from parents is, I was raised by people who didn't take that into consideration. So my parents didn't think about how I felt, and I'm not going to allow that to happen to my child. And so they swing really far in the other direction. But what they forget is that there is a very big, happy middle where your child does feel supported and heard and loved and cared for, and you allow them to experience things that are difficult.
Welcome to Season 8 of Flusterclux with Lynn Lyons, where we talk about managing worry, anxiety, and all the other emotions too.
I'm Lynn Lyons. I'm an anxiety expert, author, speaker, and mom. I've been a therapist for 35 years, and I'm still in the trenches with families, helping them navigate daily struggles and big problems. Parenting can be a flusterclux, but we tackle the serious stuff without being too serious.
I'm Robin. I'm Lynn's sister-in-law and co-host, and I'm here to ask your questions.
And I'm Ed, the producer of Flusterclux.
And my brother.
And my husband.
Anxiety is a family problem with a family solution.
Hey, Lynn.
Hi, Robin.
I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Me too. Yeah. I'm going to talk about all the different types of parenting styles. I will tell you what sort of sparked this idea in my head, but I just want to tell you that I have a new neighbor.
Who must have little kids.
Yeah. So they moved in. They're behind us. Several years ago, a road was built behind us. We had woods behind us and a road was built behind us. And so it's like a nice little cul-de-sac. And so people come and go, of course. But we noticed there was a lot of construction going on right behind us. They were building a deck. There was a lot of machinery and that kind of stuff. And so there's a little boy behind us whose name is Milo. And I think Milo is kind of naughty, or Milo and the dad are both kind of cut from the same cloth because Milo does a lot of things that dad doesn't like. And there's a lot of yelling. So there was a big birthday party there this weekend, and I was outside, and all of a sudden I just heard all this yelling like, Milo! And then there was like, get off of him! And then all these girls started screaming, and it was just complete pandemonium at the birthday party. And then dad comes in, and dad's yelling, and then I think dad was yelling at Milo, yelling at mom. But actually, from my vantage point of the old neighbor next door, I just chuckled through the whole thing. Yeah.
So the other thing that I'm excited about is that I see occasionally in my Instagram algorithms conversations about the parenting style of young kids now that we're too old to experience firsthand, but you still experience in your practice.
Yes. And I get a lot of questions about it, and certainly am in the thick of, as we all know, my kids are young adults now, but I talk to a lot of parents and see a lot of families with young kids. Yeah. And I got Milo now behind me. So I'm in, he might as well be in my kitchen, that little screaming baby. Yeah.
Well, so there's 10 we've counted.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go through these 10, and you're going to get the Lynn Lyons endorsement Or the Lynn Lyons takedown.
The thumbs down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do a lot of internal eye rolling. And, I've talked very openly about the fact that the mental health profession in and of itself has a lot of ridiculousness. Like there's just so much ridiculousness. And here we go.
The other thing to think about is that as one of my good friends who has written books on yoga always says there's not one discipline of yoga that she follows. Why would she limit herself? Why wouldn't she want to study and then go and teach best of all of the different schools of thought of yoga? That's no different here. I mean, there's some good intentions in most of these, except for a few. Some of them are a little wackadoodle.
They are. And the same thing happens with different types of therapies. I mean, there's thousands of different types of therapies, and people are always trying to market it and name it and call it something and trademark it. So that's what happens with parenting, of course. It's just, how are you selling your ideas? How are you packaging your ideas?
And wouldn't you say to encourage all parents to let something resonate with you, but be flexible about it?
Yeah, and just pick and choose what works best. And there are some things that are really helpful and some things that aren't going to work with your child's personality. I often reference my very good friend in high school growing up. Her dad was a very successful businessman who was also in the military when he was younger. And he didn't know how to differentiate between running a business or running a boot camp and raising children. And that didn't go over very well because he didn't have the flexibility to say, well, maybe my 7-year-old doesn't want to be treated as if she's in basic training. So it's that flexibility of being able to pick and choose what resonates. And I think you're right, is that just like your friend who I know was talking about, people get under a guru. They pick somebody that they're going to follow. And that allegiance and that loyalty and that uncritical thinking doesn't work very well in a lot of ways, be it yoga or parenting or therapy or whatever. So it's about that flexibility.
Yeah, perfect example. So I'm all for baby wearing. I did it. I had a couple of different types of carriers. And then I learned that some people also wore the placenta. So that was like, okay, so that's a whole new level. There was an extra pouch on someone's carrier for the placenta. So they carried the placenta around. It's called like lotus birthing. They carried the placenta around until the umbilical cord naturally fell off.
Never detach the placenta?
Correct.
Okay, so are we talking like a week or a year?
As you recall,
Okay.
the placenta, the umbilical cord will naturally detach. I don't know. It's within like approximately 3 to 7 days. I mean, I'm going from a long time ago, but I'm going to guess that.
Okay, but that's a long 7 days.
Right. And I think that's the funny part of it all, is that if you sort of take on your parenting style like you're following a guru, then people can figure out how to keep going down that path or upping down that path until it can get a little absurd. And there's nothing wrong with letting the umbilical cord stump fall out naturally. I think that's actually what we did.
Right.
But it's, in a couple days it falls off. But
yeah.
And I'm not judging. Maybe there is some medical science that was really great, but I just don't think that the medical science was there. I think it was.
Oh, you know what? Let's judge.
Okay, I'm trying.
If you're walking around with your placenta, let's judge. Maybe they did that in some culture. I don't know.
But it's like, it's the glee that mom has sharing that that's what she does. And that's like the dangerous space of all of this, of like, well, this is what we do.
It is trying to one up, and it is, we say like, let's judge. Human beings are very judgy. I talk about that all the time. And it's like anything, like somebody takes on something and you're like, really? You know what? I was listening to Kristen Bell and the woman who is in the show with her that's coming out for the second season.
Nobody wants that.
Right. And so her sister, the woman who plays her sister, she describes this long prank that she did with Kristen Bell, where she told Kristen Bell that she had learned that you should drink your own urine in the morning. And so everybody knew about it except for Kristen Bell. And she had this container, and she would just sort of be having a conversation with Kristen Bell. And then she'd say, oh, hold on, I just have to make a quick call. And she'd call down. She'd go like, hey, could you bring up that thermos in the fridge in the green room? Could you just bring that up? I just feel like I have to tell you it is urine. But she would say it very quietly, but she knew that Kristen Bell was listening. And it went on and on and on. That is just a good example of there's probably somebody out there who was told by some guru that you should drink your first urine in the morning, is that's like the powerful urine. But yeah, but this actress, like,
Not the well hydrated, barely yellow urine. You want it golden.
yeah, you got to have it. Yeah. And she was just like giving Kristen Bell more and more information. And Kristen Bell was getting more and more concerned about this and going home and talking to Dax Shepard and being like, should I tell her? I don't want to really, I don't know about this. It was just such a great long play. But that's just such a good example of somebody said, like, you should drink your urine. And, it's like you should carry your placenta. All that to say is that there are 10 types of parenting that I hear about, and we made a list, and we're going to go through them.
We'll take a break, and then we'll get started.
Hey, everybody. The kids are back in school. The vacations are over. It's officially the start of the cozy season, which means you need your Bombas socks and your slippers. They have the most comfortable socks, slippers, tees, and underwear out there. They're made from premium materials like merino wool that keeps you warm when it's chilly but cool when it's hot. Supima cotton, it's softer and stronger and more breathable than regular cotton. And even rag wool, the thick, durable, classic, cozy sock that you'll want all fall. For every item you buy, Bombas donates one to someone experiencing homelessness. Over 150 million items have been donated thanks to customers. If you're not satisfied, 100% guarantee they'll make it right. There's no risk and all reward. I love my Bombas socks. I wear them every time I go to the gym. I love them. I wear them hiking. They last and last and last. In fact, I just got back from a hike wearing my Bombas compression socks. Head over to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/audio. Code AUDIO at checkout. All right, everybody, fall is here, and with it comes cooler nights and heartier meals and craving for that something that's just warm and satisfying. That's where HelloFresh comes in, bringing you comforting, chef-designed recipes and fresh seasonal ingredients right to your door. This season, they've taken things to the next level with their biggest menu refresh yet. So say hello to a whole new way to do dinner. I am fresh off the most delicious pork dish. We had a beef dish. The selections, it's hard to make up your mind. So healthy, so easy to prepare. Include your kids in the cooking. It's a great way to get them involved. The best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/Flusterclux10FM now to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life. One per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's HelloFresh.com/Flusterclux10FM to get 10 free meals and a free item for life. Hey, when I was little, we had a lemonade stand. And we made so much money on that lemonade stand. We were so smart with our little business. And I think we were smart with our money too. Having parents that talked about money, that gave us money skills, really has served me very well throughout my life. Do you want your kids to be smart about money? I think you do. Acorns Early is the smart debit card and money app that grows kids' money skills as they grow up. You can help your kids learn the value of a dollar. We just did an episode on the importance of contributing in a household, giving kids a sense of how to make and develop good, healthy money habits. Are you ready to teach your kids the smart way to earn, save, and spend? Get your first month on us when you head to acornsearly.com/fluster or download the Acorns Early app. That's 1 month free when you sign up at acornsearly.com/fluster. Acorns Early Card is issued by Community Federal Savings Bank, member FDIC, pursuant to license by MasterCard International. Free trial for new subscribers only. Subscription fee starting from $5 per month unless canceled. Terms apply at acorns.com/earlyterms. Okay, we're back. Are you ready, Robin?
I'm ready.
Okay. So the first one is not going to surprise anybody, but snowplow parenting. Also called lawnmower parenting. Probably if you live in Southern California, you don't even know what a snowplow is. So snowplow parenting, lawnmower parenting. What does that mean? It means that you remove obstacles from your child. So you are in front, you are the snowplow. You are getting rid of anything that might impede your child moving through the world. Obviously, that has a negative connotation because the more that we snowplow in front of our children, the less ability they have to manage obstacles as they pop up.
What would a good snowplow example be? Is snowplow a label that is applied to somebody else versus one that they proudly self-identify as?
Yes, you probably don't want to join the snowplow parenting group on Facebook. So you're saying that negatively. And I certainly use that negatively, like, oh, you're a snowplow parent. You don't ever want to be accused of being a snowplow parent, but there are people who are doing this and they think they're doing right for their child. So an example of this would be, I had a client whose daughter was afraid of dogs. And she would email everybody in the family, or if this girl had a soccer practice, she would email all the parents on the soccer team saying, Lydia is afraid of dogs, so please, nobody is allowed to bring their dog to the field. That would be an example of being a snowplow parent. Or you go into a school before the school year even starts and you lay out to the teachers all the things that your child cannot handle and that you don't want your child to be exposed to so that everything goes smoothly. It's stepping in and making sure that there are no bumps.
Just for the people who haven't been listening or haven't read your books, accommodation seems to be the guiding principle of this parenting strategy. And accommodation is the term you use because as a parent, you're actively trying to avoid situations that are uncomfortable or uncertain for your kid.
Correct. So accommodation is the thing that people do in order to make sure that their child isn't triggered so that they don't feel anxious, they don't feel uncomfortable. Talked about this a gazillion times with schools, put accommodations in. If the goal is to make sure that your child never feels uncomfortable, then of course your child begins to believe two things. One is that the world is really hard to manage, so you need adults to accommodate you. And also that you're really incapable of handling anything. So the message that the child gets from the parent is, you're not capable. So I'm a snowplow parent. I'm not going to put you on the school bus. I'm going to make sure that I drive you to school every day. And if there is a field trip, I am going to step in to make sure that you have everything you need. And I'm going to dictate to other people that nothing is uncomfortable for you. Certainly, parents do that a lot with anxious kids, and anxious parents do it. And then there are other parents that just do it because they feel that their child deserves to have everything go smoothly.
And just one more footnote to add, because I think this is the tricky part. Parents think that they're doing this because it's the most loving way to be.
Right.
And I think it's well intended. And this is the aha moment you have with so many parents who listen to the podcast or work with you in therapy. They're like, oh, I should let my kids practice being uncomfortable or having to manage uncertainty. And that's why we're here with an anxiety disorder, because I've denied them those skills to build.
And they really feel like their role as a parent is to make sure that their child feels safe. This is why that word safe is so tricky. That you feel safe, that you feel comfortable, that nothing upsets you. And very often, and this is going to come up with a lot of these parenting styles, and what I hear a lot from parents is, I was raised by people who didn't take that into consideration. So my parents didn't think about how I felt, or they didn't think about how uncomfortable I was, or they put me in situations that felt overwhelming, and I'm not going to allow that to happen to my child. And so they swing really far in the other direction, saying, it was really awful for me to be neglected or to be dismissed or to be invalidated or to be left on my own. So I don't want my child to feel the way that I felt. But what they forget is that there is a very big happy middle where your child does feel supported and heard and loved and cared for, and you allow them to experience things that are difficult, because that's how they develop their confidence, their esteem, their sense of mastery in the world. And a snowplow parent or a lawnmower parent wants to protect their child from feeling badly, but then doesn't give them the opportunity to develop problem solving.
That sounds a lot like the other one you were telling me about, which is eggshell parenting.
Yes. And all of these labels, like they come up, I see them on Instagram and Facebook and that kind of stuff. These are just things that people come up with. So eggshell parent is you have a child who's pretty strong-willed or pretty explosive, or a child that has temper tantrums, or a child that gives you a hard time. And you decide that it's just too hard to set limits. So you walk around on eggshells so as not to upset, not to trigger, not to activate a big response in your child. Actually, it happens in a lot of relationships. It happens with siblings. It happens with your partner. You've got an explosive person in your life and you decide, oh, okay, the way to manage this is to walk around on eggshells because I don't want to trigger them. That becomes a pattern too.
So it's another accommodating pattern, but just from a different angle.
Mm-hmm. And it's all about trying to avoid making somebody else upset or angry or sad or explosive or fill in the blank. So you're changing your behavior and oftentimes demanding other people change their behavior so that the subject of this doesn't get difficult, upset, sad, angry, explosive, whatever.
When kids are raised in that kind of environment, at some point, there's going to be a moment where they have not developed certain things they needed to develop that their peers may have developed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you'll discover it in school, or it'll happen with friends. It'll happen in some sort of environment. And I will tell you, this is the hard part about this. If you are a snowplow parent or a lawnmower parent or an eggshell parent, it is really hard at that moment. Parents don't generally say, oh my gosh, what have I done? They say, this is a problem. They look to the world to solve the problem. And then they don't know what to do and they don't know how to fix it. So they double down and they become angry themselves that how dare this school, or how dare this other family, or how dare this coach, or how dare this boss, how dare this professor set this obstacle in front of my child.
You know what? We had a listener question to show like this example.
Mm-hmm.
A girl was a freshman in college and had a roommate, and the daughter did not want to talk about a boy in the dorm.
Mm-hmm.
So then the sister of the girl calls the roommate and says, we request that you no longer mention this boy in conversation at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not allowed to say his name. So that was a perfect example of the family. Our daughter's upset. She doesn't want to hear about this boy. Let's make the world not tell her about this boy.
Yes. Let's remove the obstacle.
So that's what that looks like as they're older.
Yeah, in the extreme. And it happens in all sorts of ways. It happens in little ways and big ways, but it's a pattern of saying, how dare you make my child uncomfortable?
So let's talk about what is the parenting style that is afflicting dorm room mamas? Because that's the stage of parenting I'm in right now.
Concierge parenting.
Oh, well, that would make sense. So concierge parenting is like, I'm going to make your life a beautiful vacation.
My child is having a difficult time with this. So I'm going to just provide all the services. And I see this much more with daughters than with sons, to be honest. But I'm just going to provide the services that they require so that their life is happy. Like I want to keep my daughter happy. So say you've got a sophomore in high school that's going through a difficult time socially, and maybe they've been rejected by somebody, or they didn't get what they wanted in some way. They didn't make the team, et cetera, et cetera. The mom, because again, it's very often a mom-daughter pattern, will then say, well, she's had such a tough day. When I pick her up, I'm going to make sure that I have her favorite Starbucks drink, or I'm going to cook what she wants for dinner, or I'm going to surprise her When she comes home from school today, I know she had a tough day, so I'm going to make sure that there's a new piece of clothing for her. Or for younger kids, she doesn't really like going to her dance class or she doesn't want to go to tutoring. So I'm going to make sure that when I pick her up from school and then we're going to go to tutoring, I provide her with the service or the treat or the toy or the clothing that she needs. So you're really there like a concierge in a hotel, like I need this service.
Okay, so a little bit of that sounds nice, but I think this is what you're going to say. Because I think other listeners are also hearing you say, well, that sounds really great. And I would like a concierge mom in my life
Yes,
too.
yes.
But I think that what you're saying is that we're thinking of ways to distract them from the thing that was hard so that they are practicing managing it by throwing something else in their direction that is meant to be delightful, to distract them, to understand, like, I'm sorry you had a bad day. We have bad days. You went to tutoring and you didn't like it. We have to do things we don't like. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Or you have to do this thing that's uncomfortable. You have to do this thing that you don't feel like doing. I say that one of the best skills that people develop in life is the ability to do things when they don't feel like it. And somebody is there behind you saying you had to do this thing that was hard or that you didn't want to do or that was uncomfortable. And I'm going to compensate you for your discomfort. So you had to go to tutoring, or you had to go to the reading specialist, or you had to go to the dentist. And because that made you feel uncomfortable, I have to even it out. Sometimes it feels like bribery. And oftentimes these kids that are raised this way have this sense of entitlement. Like, well, in order for me to go to the dentist, you have to take me for a mani-pedi. That's the deal I'm striking with you. It's this negotiation. And the parent feels like they have to constantly stay ahead of their child's anger or disappointment or refusal by giving them things that become sort of rewards and bribes.
I've definitely heard that. But let me ask you this, because there's a balance. Are you saying that you would have never done a little bit of the treat with your boys?
No, and that's the thing is that these types of parenting we're talking about, these are all sort of when you go to the extreme, when you adopt it as your style.
Global language.
You did. You said never. Yeah. I mean, certainly, like, say my son had to get a cavity filled for the first time. And I say, you know what, that was really hard and nobody likes to get a cavity. I'm sure maybe there's somebody, I don't know. I loved my root canal that I had when my son was 4 weeks old. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-week-old, and they were like, you have to lie in this chair for 2 hours and have a root canal. I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. Take your time. But so say you're going to get a cavity filled, or they have to go and get a bunch of shots, or, you know, whatever, they have to get stitches. You can say, oh my gosh, you did such a good job with that. And that was so hard. Let's go get some ice cream. That's just fine. Of course. I'm just talking about this concierge parenting where sometimes even the parents will say, and again, it's often daughters, my daughter deserves the best. So this is that dorm room mamas, right? I'm going to spend $10,000 on a dorm room upgrade because this is what my daughter deserves, because she is my princess. She is my special person.
You said that this happens more with moms and daughters, but I'm going to tell you a real life example.
Yeah.
So a mom of sons reached out to me in my full-time job, which is I'm a travel advisor for families. And she's like, so my son's graduating from high school, and we want to take he and his friends on a trip, but we need to go somewhere where 18 is the legal drinking age so they can go drinking and clubbing.
Oh gosh, that's a whole nother problem.
But that's also concierge. It's like, you want that? Okay, let's make it happen. Okay, son, you're 18 and you want to just go and get crazy drunk and go clubbing in a country that's legal so that you can come back to a country that's not legal.
Yeah.
Where you're going to be going to school.
Right.
Very different issue, but...
Well, and a concierge parent it's very much like a constant pattern. If you look at it, it's not like my child is turning 16 and I want to give her this great party or whatever. It's a very consistent, almost day to day, I have to provide services for my child in order for them to agree to do the things that they're supposed to do. So these parents are not saying, hey, in order for you to get time on your phone, you need to do the dishes. They're saying, in order for you to do your homework, I'll bring up the Starbucks to your room. It's more sort of like, I'm just going to keep giving you these things so that you'll do your obligations. It's kind of gross.
Another parenting style that's been around for a very long time, no matter how old your kids are, like our kids, you've heard of helicopter parenting. What I think is interesting about helicopter parenting is that those first styles that we talked about were about accommodating your kid, whereas helicopter parenting in some ways is accommodating your worry.
That's right. Yeah. Helicopter parenting is really about your own anxiety and the way that you view the world as a dangerous place. Anxious parents convey to their kids that the world is a dangerous place. So helicopter parenting is very often that you're anxious and you're also controlling. So helicopter parenting is pretty controlling. I need to know what my child is doing. I need to know where they are. And it could be because I'm so anxious, but it also could be because I need to make sure that they are living up to my expectations. I was talking about this with somebody recently. When they put the school portals in place, the student portals, where parents could check and see what the grades were and what the homework assignment was, when all of that technology started, I was like, oh, here we go. Because the parents that are most anxious and or controlling about their child's performance are going to really helicopter. You've got helicopter parents that are wanting to make sure that their child is safe all the time. So they're tracking them on Life 360, or they're not letting them walk to the neighbor's house 2 doors down. And you've also got helicopter parents that are saying things like, I just want to make sure that she lives up to her potential.
Right. Who's in the grade portals all the time.
Mm-hmm. In the grade portals. Yep. I mean, I was so surprised by this, actually. I don't think this is helicopter parenting, but I thought it was sort of controlling parenting. This happened with my boys. You drop your kids off at Little League practice or soccer practice, and the parents would sit and watch the practice. Like, I was like, really? Just drop them off and go. It's this level of control, level of surveillance. And there are some parents at that soccer practice that are there because they want to make sure that their kid is doing their best. And there are also some parents that are there because they want to make sure that their child is safe.
Or available if they need them because they're in distress.
Correct.
So it could come from the snowplow lawnmower or the helicopter.
Yeah. There's actually this new thing that I've just been seeing too that is very much the danger of sleepovers. Have you been hearing this? There's a new trend now of no sleepovers ever because that's where bad things happen. And that's a little unfortunate too.
That was definitely on trend when my kids were sleepover age for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There was a parent at one of my daughter's sleepovers. Actually, a few had phones. And I said, during this birthday party and sleepover, I want you guys just to play and have fun. So we're going to keep the phones charging downstairs. And the mom said, I have to have the phone next to my daughter at all times.
Right. Yeah. So this trend is never, ever let your child go on a sleepover. It's where bad things happen. They see things can happen. They can get sexually abused. There's a real big voice right now about the danger of sleepovers, which I think is sad because then we go into like, what about sleepaway camp, which you and I have talked about. And I've done so much work with camps and it's just such a wonderful environment for kids. It's this whole thing of like, things are dangerous and we need to keep our kids in contact and close at all times. So that's the ultimate in helicopter parenting is you are not allowed to be out of my sight, either literally my eyeballs or in terms of my ability to surveil you, my ability to know where you are all the time and to reach you all the time. Yeah.
Can I be honest about something?
Okay.
When I encounter the moms who are that way about sleepovers, because I met a few who said, we don't do sleepovers. Do you know where my brain goes? My brain just goes to like, that mom may have had something traumatic happen to her when she was unsupervised and she's just doing her best trying to protect her kids. I mean, maybe it's not always, but it's like not my business. So I feel bad that that's potentially what is driving it.
Yeah, and it can be. And this is to the same point is that when we see people practicing these parenting styles that we might go like, oh, come on. They will often say, I was neglected. I was left on my own. I was unvalidated. Nobody understood what I needed as a child. And I'm not going to do that to my child. So this is why when you have a parent who's really anxious, they are often the ones that accommodate the most. And this is where conflict happens if there's an anxious parent and a non-anxious parent, because the anxious parent says, you don't know how this feels, and I will not let my child feel or experience what I felt or experienced. So this is where people are going to be tired of me saying this, but this is why I don't work with kids alone, because it's really, really helpful for me to work with the parents to help them see and understand how this thing travels through generations. That's what it does. So yeah, that's a very good point, is that the parents that are the most safety conscious, the most afraid, the most protective are sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes the ones that experienced that sleepaway camp or that trauma that then dictates how they parent. And that's where we have to help parents differentiate between their experience and the skills that they are or aren't allowing their children to develop.
I want to talk about the difference between free-range parenting and unparenting.
All right, so free-range parenting. So Lenore is one of the champions of this, and there's a lot of talk, particularly now that we've been talking so much about phones and tracking and all that kind of stuff. Free-range parenting, we sort of had to give it a name. It's sort of like 70s parenting.
Right. So it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, it's the kind of parenting that I grew up with, where my parents loved me and sort of knew where I was, but not that much. And Lenore Skenazy started this movement because she was absolutely vilified when she wrote an article about letting her 9-year-old take the subway on his own in New York after practice and going over what the route was and where she was going to meet him. And she was deemed the worst mother in the world.
By some people.
By some people, not by everybody, but they came at her. She was kind of ahead of the curve because this was before where we are now with all of the cell phone stuff of how do we let our kids develop independence? And free-range parenting means that we give kids the opportunity to go off and do things on their own. Oh my gosh, my sister just sent me, and I'd seen it before, but she just sent it to me again. It was a video on Instagram of the Down syndrome kid who was going in to order his Slurpee at 7-Eleven by himself. So dad sat in the car and he went in with his $2 or however much it costs and ordered it by himself and got his change and came back into the car. And then he called his mom to say that he did it. It was just like one of those videos that's just so heartwarming. But this is what we're talking about, is letting kids do things on their own. So free-range parenting doesn't mean that you have no boundaries, no limits, no supervision. It doesn't mean that. It means that you lengthen the leash. And what we know from the research is that the leash has been getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Yeah. So we let them play outside. I mean, I know a lot of parents I talk to that won't let their kids play outside in their own yard without an adult watching them. It's not good. Unparenting, I'm sure like Oprah did an episode on unparenting. It's when parents abdicate all responsibility. So the kids have no bedtime.
Oprah would have none of that nonsense.
Yeah.
I don't think she did this because Oprah would have had to have done the show a while ago. So I've never heard of this, but I've heard of unschooling.
Yeah. So unschooling, you're homeschooling, but there's no agenda, there's no curriculum, kids can do whatever they want. And so unparenting is that taken to an extreme. So kids, if they want to stay up till 3 a.m, they're allowed to stay up till 3 a.m. They eat what they want, they do what they want. They live their lives completely free of the control of adults. You know, my husband would say it's just Lord of the Flies. You're just letting these kids do what they want. Now, there are some households where they're unparenting and they do have some rules, like you're not allowed to hit each other and they're not allowed to smoke pot or they're not allowed to. But unparenting basically says that kids are allowed to do whatever they want and they will find their way because they know best. It's sort of the thing where, as a therapist, I hear this a lot and I sort of bristle at it, where people will say, and I see this on like People's Psychology Today profiles or whatever, you have all the resources inside of you already to solve your problems. I'm like, no, a lot of people don't. Yeah, a lot of people don't. So when we say kids know everything they need to know about how to become adults, I'm like, no, they don't.
Here's my philosophical question, though. If you were to take 10 kids raised by both helicopter and snowplow parents, and they're 18 years old, and then you took 10 kids who were unparented fully until 18, here's what's interesting, right? Like you and I can guess what you would see.
Yeah.
You would see the unparenting kids would be lacking in many essential skills, but they would have uber developed other skills that the others hadn't. And I think that's the whole point of not following one guru, because if you're too limited in how you approach this, you're going to restrict your kids from practicing some of the essential skills.
Yeah. Well, because here's a good real life example of that. Say that there is a family where, for whatever reason, the parents are absolutely not parenting. Maybe they had addiction issues. Maybe they weren't really into parenting. I mean, there are kids that are absolutely left on their own. I had a client long ago whose dad skipped out. Mom had to work 2 jobs, and there were 4 little kids, and they were left on their own a lot. They were unparented, not because it was a philosophical choice, because that's what happened in their lives. And there are some kids that in this situation become incredibly responsible. There are adults you talk to that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that you made it through that. And now you run your own business. And then there are kids that are left in that situation who develop their own addictions, who become pregnant at 14, who can't hold down a job, who just struggle and struggle and struggle. So it's very interesting in those situations where you are not parented. Some of them become super responsible. Some of them figure it out, and some of them really, really don't. And that probably has to do with temperament. It might have to do with who's the oldest and who's the youngest. It might have to do if you had somebody else in your life that was providing guidance, that you decided that you were going to go to school and you had a teacher that sort of kept an eye on you. So yeah, unparenting happens for sad reasons too, not for philosophical choices. And the results of that can be very wide ranging.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the parenting styles that we'd say that we probably like the most.
Yeah. Okay, it's getting colder outside. Calling for those layers, those cozy, warm sweaters, those fall coats that look so fantastic. Luckily, Quince makes it easy to look polished, to stay warm, and to save big without compromising on quality. Think Mongolian cashmere, $50. Or denim. Denim's back, everybody. How about those great coats that you need to look fabulous, but also keep you warm and toasty? If you wear t-shirts like I do, I already have several of their t-shirts. They have a cotton modal scoop t-neck 3-pack, 3 high-quality t-shirts for $36. And Quince partners directly with top-tier ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen. They deliver luxury quality at half the price of similar brands. It's the kind of wardrobe upgrade that feels smart and stylish and effortless. So find your fall staples at Quince. Go to quince.com/fluster for free shipping in your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/fluster to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/fluster. There is so much information surrounding us right now. I mean, it's coming in at us all the time, and it's easy to feel lost, easy to feel overwhelmed, to not know where the good stuff is, where the experts live. Well, they're at Masterclass. If you want insights to make your life better, you need Masterclass. You can learn about relationships from Esther Perel. There is a new Science of Parenting class featuring Lisa D'Amour and other experts. If you want to learn about health, there are classes on gut health. There are classes on brain health. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. With plans starting at $10 a month, billed annually, you get unlimited access to over 200 classes taught by the world's best business leaders, writers, chefs, and more. With Masterclass, you get thousands of bite-sized lessons across 13 categories that can fit even the busiest of schedules. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/fluster. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/fluster. Masterclass.com/fluster. You know, it's time that we stop focusing on weight and that number on the scale. It's really time to pay attention to our energy, to reshaping and rediscovering our body's true potential. Creatone by Brickhouse Nutrition was created by doctors specifically for women. It will help you look more toned, defined, and it is radically different from guys' creatine. It's designed for women with pure creatine and patented ingredients that reshape your body so you look leaner, trimmer, and more toned. No water retention, no weight gain, no bulking up. That's what women worry about when they take creatine. It boosts your metabolism to help you burn fat. That's a plus. So get rid of the scale and watch how fast creatone can help you look leaner, toned, and sculpted. I just received my first shipment of creatone. This is going to up my game. It's specifically for women. I can't wait to try it out and see what difference it makes for me. Let's get you started with 20% off your first order. Visit tonetoday.com and use my code FLUSTER for your discount. Again, use the code FLUSTER to save 20% off at tonetoday.com. That's TONE today.com. Okay, so now back to the show.
Okay, so Lynn, I got a few Instagram reels about this new trend called gentle parenting that very much made me chuckle.
Yeah, not so new. It's been around for a while.
But it wasn't around when my kids were younger. So it's like new in the last 10 years.
Okay, 5 years.
5 years. That sounds right. So like in the last 5 years, this term, it seems very language-based. And it also seems like it had a good idea that went silly.
Correct, which is often the case.
But I think it's a very popular term now. So let's unpack what it is and what to be thoughtful about if you think that it's a good thing.
Okay. Gentle parenting, the approach, the good part of it is that you really are paying attention to your child's developmental needs and that you are listening to them, you are understanding the emotional lives of your child, that you are not looking at their behavior through the lens of being naughty, but you're really looking at their behavior through the lens of they're trying to get their needs met. And developmentally, this is how you get your needs met. And so we want to help kids understand their feelings. We want to recognize that when a child is acting out or a child is having a tantrum, that's not a place to punish. It's a place to recognize and help them understand how they feel, because oftentimes we're talking about younger kids. So Becky Kennedy, she's actually changed her language a little bit, that she's now talking about sturdy parenting. I've noticed that in the last year or so. So this whole gentle parenting thing, where it went off the rails is parents really were talking too much about every feeling that their child had. Say you said, come on, it's time to put your shoes on. And your child was like, no, I'm not putting my shoes on. The parent was like, okay, so let's talk about why you are feeling right now as if you have to assert your independence and not put your shoes on. And perhaps I need to give you more choices about your shoes. And if you're my age, you're sitting there going like, oh my God, stop talking and tell her to put her shoes on. It's this over-validating and over-discussing of every feeling. Where I come down on this is that, of course, kids have feelings. And of course, we want to recognize their developmental needs. And of course, we want to validate when they're having a tough time. And then sometimes we just got to put your shoes on. So it's the ability to do things when you don't feel like it. We're not invalidating your feelings, but we're also saying we're not going to put every feeling in charge. And I don't have to discuss everything that happens during the day ad nauseum. And that's where it got a little crazy.
I think most parents who say like, my mom and dad yelled at me and I don't want to have a yelling household. So I really like this idea of gentle parenting because I wish my own feelings had been validated. All that stuff is great.
Yes.
So then the parent is like doing that and saying like, I'd like to give you another choice if you don't want to put your shoes on because now we're late for school.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying this so hard. And then all of a sudden they are done.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're the FAFO parent.
Yeah, right.
Like, because there's a point where you're just going to lose it.
Right. There is such thing as a child doing something that you need to reprimand or you need to stop. There was a little boy that my kids played with, and he was a little out of control. And at one point, he had his hands around my kid's neck, and he was choking one of my sons. And the mom, who is lovely and a wonderful parent, and said, "It looks right now like you're feeling very sad and very upset about something." And my husband was like, "Get his hands off my son's." And my son said, "We're not playing with him anymore because nobody is telling him you can't choke another child. It's all about his feelings rather than his impact on somebody else." And that's where it gets a little crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. My husband was so angry.
Like, how did that play out in that play date or that hangout, whatever you want to call it?
I think I'd have to ask him. It was such a long time ago, but I think my husband said, "Hey, this is not going to work here. Knock it off. Tell your kid," and this was a good friend of ours, "tell him to take his hands off my child." It was stern. Yeah. And if I called him in right now to talk about this, he's still pissed about it.
Yeah, that's why I was just curious. Did he go at the parent or did he go at the kid?
He went probably both. Like, he probably physically took our kid out of the situation and then not yelled at the parent, but like went after the parent. Yeah. I mean, she's like the nicest person ever, but it was just ridiculous. And that's where I think if you're hanging around with somebody who is taking this gentle parenting to the extreme, one of the common feelings that it brings up in you as you're observing it is that you get annoyed with this parent who won't set any limits. And it makes everything harder for the people around your child. So if you're at a birthday party or if you're at a family dinner or if you're on vacation and the kid is acting out, which is totally appropriate for a kid to have a temper tantrum or to want something, and the parent is spending all this time having this discussion, it starts to get really annoying. The concepts of gentle parenting, because I'm not a yeller and I don't believe in yelling, and people say to me, "You don't yell at your kids." I really don't and didn't. The concepts of it are so solid, and being able to understand the emotional needs of kids and understand the developmental stages of kids. It's just when it goes too far.
It's the gentle parent can take it too far when they carry with them the fear of the child being upset. One thing I've really taken away from doing this show with you is it's always easier to see it when your friends talk about their kids than when you go through it yourself.
Oh, for sure.
But you always have to say, I am comfortable with my child being bored. I am comfortable with my child being upset. I'm comfortable with my child being frustrated. I'm comfortable with all of these things. I'm comfortable with my child being sad today.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to be comfortable with all of their emotions. And if you kind of aren't, what if you're really not good with anger or sadness for other reasons?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make gentle parenting get muddy really fast.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point too, is that I've seen a lot of parents who have embraced the extreme of gentle parents because they're afraid of their own emotional reactions.
Yes.
You can see them like trying very hard to be like, "I understand that you're upset," because they want to be like, "Just shut up." Like, they're very afraid that they're going to lose it. And so they're trying this as a way to manage their own emotions. Again, that's why as a parent, you really have to own your own stuff and you have to learn. Parenting is super, super hard, and it requires an enormous amount of emotional flexibility. And that's why we want to work on that. Yeah.
So gentle parenting also, because it's so language based, you always say, remember to talk 85% less. So it's really easy for a gentle parent to get caught in a chatty pattern where they're just talking too much.
And that's where people get annoyed. Like if you're hanging around with somebody who's not really understanding the concept and who's just talking all the time, that's when you're just like, shut up. Yeah, you're just put on the shoes. Like, let's just go. I mean, can you imagine, like, talk to waitresses who work in restaurants where kids come in. The kid is throwing the food around or doing this, and the gentle parent is like, we don't throw food. The waitress is like, oh my God, just tell them that they can't, it's that type of reaction to it. Yeah.
Well, in fairness, like let's say we're dealing with that situation. And I think it's like there's a series of events. So here I am with like a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old at a Panera for a special lunch out or whatever. And then the 2.5-year-old starts tearing pieces of baguette or potato chips and making a mess on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, hey, actually, I think this would probably be around age 3, though. 2 is still pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
So the 3-year-old, and this actually happened, by the way. So
I was thinking maybe it was getting a little autobiographical.
that's right. Hey, we don't do that. Calm voice.
Yeah.
Eye contact. We don't do that. Gave him a chance.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that. So now I'm no longer in my sweet voice. I'm in my, I need you to pay attention better than you did last time voice.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're leaving because you are not listening to me. And then you take the kids and you go. And a lot of parents don't do that, but I set limits. And that 3-year-old, who's now 14, understood when I said, hey, we're not doing that at a restaurant. It has consequences.
Right. When people refer to sturdy parent and consistent parenting, is that your job is to teach your kids where the limits are and then to consistently enforce them. And of course, you give a warning and you say, hey, we don't do that. And then it keeps happening. And then you recognize, okay, so now we need to exit the situation because the 3-year-old at this moment is not developmentally capable of reining in their behavior for whatever reason. That's consistent, sturdy parenting. You just don't have to scream and yell. So it's when they hang in there for a really long time and you lose track of, we're now impacting the people around us. That's when it becomes a problem. And you're not setting limits with your kids to let them know that this is where the behavior stops. Just like the mom with my son. You can't choke my son and then say, you must be feeling sad right now. Doesn't work. Nobody has to scream and yell, but consistent, sturdy, this is not what we're going to do.
I don't feel like our listeners are these parents very much, but I will say that what must it be like to parent young children and not care the impact your family's having on the people around you? I mean, come on.
I don't think that they don't care. I think that this is why these parenting things can run so amok. Just like following the yoga guru, you are told over and over again that this is what you're supposed to do. And if you don't parent in this way, you're going to damage your kids. So these parents are really afraid to set limits. They're afraid that they're going to damage their kids. And so they err on the side. It's the same thing with the snowplow parenting and the concierge parenting. They're afraid that they're going to damage them. So they err on the side of trying to make everything okay while at the same time not upsetting their kids at all. That's probably what all of these parenting styles have in common, except for the FAFO parenting.
Okay, so I'm going to mention another one. I was on a plane once and I sat next to this. So not in my row of 3, opposite the aisle in the next row of 3, just this very beautiful, elegant woman and her young child. And she was exquisitely dressed in a way that I could never look. She was so polished and she had this beautifully dressed little 3-year-old who screamed at her the entire flight. And she sat there, never interacting with this child. And it occurred to me, they've left the nanny at home. So there are some parents who literally I don't know what I'm supposed to do here.
Yeah, right.
They actually didn't know what to do. So that's obviously not
That's not sweeping the nation.
But I finally realized, I was like, how can I make sense of what I'm observing? And I realized here was a mom who was very embarrassed, but she literally didn't know how to pick up and engage her 3-year-old and put him on her lap and soothe him. She just expected somebody else to do that work because that's what happens at home.
And this isn't on the list either, but this is where I talk about playful parenting. How do you play with your kids? How do you engage with your kids? How do you have fun with your kids? How do you act silly with your kids? What are the things you're going to do on a flight or in a car ride or when you're hanging out waiting for the doctor's appointment? What are the things that you know to do to engage with your kids? And some parents just don't have practice with that and not given permission to just be silly and just be playful, because a lot of parents who get stuck in all of these things that we're talking about are really trying, and they're very much taking their parenting very seriously, but sometimes too seriously. I think that one of the things, if I had to endorse a style of parenting, it would be play. It would be silliness. It would be a balance of setting limits and being consistent, right? That sturdy, consistent parenting, and then knowing how to play. And when parents don't know how to play, you're left with a lot of empty space that you have to fill, and it becomes really challenging.
Ed and I were traveling a lot for our job, and we're very often noticing families more and more and more, like even at Disney World, have their kids at meals on iPads.
Oh, for sure.
And I remember when that started and my kids were still pretty young. And it was like, okay, if you can't have your kid off an iPad at a Winnie the Pooh character meal with the Pooh characters parading around, where's this going?
Well, we know where it's going.
Right. It's not like I want to sound judgy, because it's not like my kids didn't have devices. My kids had devices. I used devices for breaks. I needed breaks too. So I'm not saying that parents aren't entitled for the break or desperately need the break sometimes. But like you said, if you were not on an iPad and you were playing with them at that meal instead and learning how to be silly and learning how to engage, you're modeling engagement that only gets more sophisticated as your kids get older, so that you're always able to entertain each other as a family and stay connected.
Yeah. And you know where that goes is that I've been hiking a lot with my boys this summer. And so when you're hiking up a big mountain, it's one of my favorite things to do. And I am so grateful that my boys love to do it too. I am with my young adult sons for 6 hours going up to the top of a mountain and coming back down. There are no devices. We have our phones with us probably in our backpack and things, but we're not carrying them and looking at them. And we are talking most of the time. We are talking, we are conversing. Sometimes we're quiet because we're hauling ourselves up a big mountain, but we are engaging and talking and relating and spending time with each other. And there are no devices. And I am so, so grateful for that. And I enjoy it. I love it so, so much.
Well, both of us have always believed in family dinner, device-free family dinner, no devices for adults or kids. And if you can, at least any night that the family's schedule allows it, have one, because that's where the skills start.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No device grocery shopping when your kids are little. Don't give them an iPad when you're grocery shopping. Talk to them. I know it's harder. It was really hard. Yeah. We've been referring to the FAFO parenting, and just so we make sure that we mention that, that's the sort of the reaction to all of this, is that I'm going to let my kids screw up. And if they're going to do it wrong, they're going to pay the consequences. They're going to be, if they forget their shoes at soccer practice, they're not going to have their shoes. If they don't hand in their homework and they can't do something at school because they didn't do their homework, I'm just going to let them bear the consequences of their actions. And I think that FAFO parenting, and again, this could go to the extreme also, of course, as everything usually does, but it's a reaction to all of these other parenting styles and all of this stuff that young parents are being exposed to. This is Leave It to Beaver parenting. I mean, actually, if you watch Leave It to Beaver, I don't know if you've watched Leave It to Beaver recently.
No.
Pretty solid parenting.
Really? I'm a Mike and Carol Brady.
That too. Yeah.
I think Mike and Carol Brady had a lot figured out.
Yeah. And on the Andy Griffith show, I mean, I've talked about this before. One of the things about that show, it was a single dad who was very willing to engage emotionally with his son and to admit his mistakes and to be very emotionally connected to Opie in ways that hadn't been portrayed on television before. Yeah. Leave It to Beaver, you watch that. I'm like, oh my God, did she wear a dress like that every single day in heels?
I just got to say that here we are talking about gentle parenting because we're so current, and then you're going to end the show on the Andy Griffith show.
I love that. You know what, Robin? Judge if you must. I watched Andy Griffith last night. There was a really good episode about Opie getting in trouble. I love the Andy Griffith show. I would watch, if somebody said you can only watch one show for the rest of your life, I'd probably choose the Andy Griffith show. I love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I might choose Brady Bunch.
Well, yeah, Brady Bunch too. You know, maybe some people like to watch The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, but I like to watch Andy Griffith. And in the morning, sometimes when I turn on the TV when I'm getting ready in the morning, probably the channel that Andy Griffith is on in the evening.
I don't even know how to watch Andy Griffith. I'm impressed that Andy Griffith is still on.
But then they're showing Leave It to Beaver in the morning. So I'm sure it's the same channel. But maybe it's just nostalgic for me. But it's just nice. They have a problem. They solve a problem. But there was a lot going on in Mayberry. Really were. They had some addiction issues. Otis was drunk all the time. It's just nostalgic and it's wholesome. I could probably teach a college course on what you can learn from the Andy Griffith show, despite the fact that Andy Griffith is he played Andy Taylor, but Andy Griffith is the first to admit he was a horrible father in real life. He's had an epiphany, but he wasn't such a great dad.
Oh, that's kind of sad. So wrapping it up back to this century, parents of younger kids who are interested in this and interested in learning schools of parenting, I think the advice that you and I are saying is rather than have one label, think of your parenting like a pie graph with all of these, the best of from all of these. Have boundaries, but do gentle parenting, but talk a lot less. The helicopter parenting is all about managing your own worry, and then all of those other accommodating styles, eggshell and snowplow. Remember that ultimately it's not as loving as you think because of the outcomes of denying your kids the practice that they need of some life skills.
Right. The development of autonomy is key. Yeah. So pick and choose. You may love the Brady Bunch, but you're not going to do Carol's hairstyle, right? Like she was a great mom, but we're not going with that shag. We're just not.
Yeah, I'm going with Greg's perm.
Thanks for listening. And if you found this podcast helpful, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find this information.
And if you'd like to dig deeper on any of these topics, we have specialized playlists on our Spotify profile, and the link is in the show notes. Topics like teens, depression, and OCD. Bye, Lynn.
Bye, Robin.
Rinse takes your laundry and hand-delivers it to your door, expertly cleaned and folded. So you could take the time once spent folding and sorting and waiting to finally pursue a whole new version of you. Like Tea Time You. Or this Tea Time You. Or even this Tea Time You.
So did you hear about Dave?
Or even Tea Time You.
So update on Dave.
It's up to you. We'll take the laundry. Rinse. It's time to be great.